Welcome to the show.
Can't help you when you're old. She's got the cushion for the pushing of the love so true. When she's talking to me, I know she's looking at you. She says there is no other, no need to question why. She's always on the phone talking to another guy. Something's up, better watch out for the train. Friday, she says it should be sharp, but I'm standing in the parking lot, I'm broken, it's dark. I have to beg and borrow to cover for my friends. This gonna hurt. This gonna hurt. This gonna hurt. It used to be so easy. I used to have a plan. I can really bite when it blows up in your hand. What a mess this world is in, and who can understand it? Got to realize we're only visiting this planet.
Hi, you've reached Jane Hoffman. This is Blog Talk Radio, and I was just looking at an event page on Facebook. On June 20th, from 3 to 9 p.m., there's going to be a Duluth Donald Trump protest hosted by Todd Nescoda. I think he's actually related to somebody I know. But the event has been changed to the Amsoil Arena. Anyways, I'm going to check to see if we have a host on the line, John Yoder. I'm going to pull him in 1 minute. It's Donald Gallimore's birthday, and he won't be joining us tonight. Tonight we're talking about stranded Libyans in Italy and people who are attending and protesting the Donald Trump Duluth rally. Now, I only know of one person protesting personally. It's Carol from my church, but I actually got a ticket to go, so I thought I'd type up a document on my position piece on him scrapping the Iran nuclear deal and how I think that affects the world globally, and I'm going to try to hand it off to one of his associates. I'm not planning a staged protest. John, I'm going to pull you in a minute. I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs of this other article. Oxfam slams treatment of migrants at the French-Italian border. This is written by Elaine Ganley, the Associated Press. Migrants who live through the trauma of camps in Libya make the dangerous Mediterranean crossing to Italy and try to push north, get a double whammy at the French-Italian border where many languish in no man's land without adequate food, water, shelter, or basic rights. A leading rights group has said on Friday. The report by Oxfam examines the plight of migrants at the border where the French and Italian Rivieras meet, a popular vacation destination for Europeans. For migrants, however, the Italian town of Ventimiglia is a place to escape from, only to face rough, often illegal treatment by French police nearby. The report comes amid a clash over migration between Italy and France as French President Emmanuel Macron meets Friday with the Prime Minister of Italy's new populist government, Giuseppe Conte. The feud was triggered by Macron's tough assessment of Italy's decision to shut ports to the rescue of a vessel loaded with 629 migrants. The French leader pointed out that the Italian government's cynicism and responsibility towards refugees was frightening. The Aquarius ship and 2 other boats are now headed to Spain after being stranded for 2 days off the coast of Italy. Italy shot back, however, with Conte's office saying Italy cannot accept hypocritical lessons from countries that on the topic of migration have always preferred to turn their heads. Nearly 39,000 migrants were refused entry into France at the Italian border from January to August of 2017, according to official data. The Oxfam report says there were some 200 migrants in Ventimiglia in 2015, quoting an NGO, that's a non-government organization director, Maurizio Marino. The population then skyrocketed when French imposed border controls in 2015. So they're all kind of like stuck in this no man's land on the Mediterranean. Today there are estimated 16,500 refugees and migrants in the town of Ventimiglia. Only 1 in 4 have children that are unaccompanied. In other words, they don't have an adult with them. Volunteers counted 4,000 new arrivals in the first 4 months of 2018. They live under a bridge near the border in an official overcrowded center where police stand guard and fingerprints are taken, removing their option to seek asylum outside of Italy. In other words, once they're fingerprinted, they don't have a choice to go somewhere else. Many migrants in Ventimiglia have been pushed out of Italy's asylum system, which has failed to meet basic migrant needs. In a grim cycle, French border police in nearby Menton pushed back again, returning them to Italy either by foot or by train. Now, I can maybe read the rest of the article at the end of the show, but I wanted to tell you that there was one report that Italians were cutting the soles of the shoes of the migrants and forcing them to walk on tough terrain versus like gravel roads or sidewalks. With that, I'm going to pull John in. Hi, John. I'm glad you joined the show tonight. It's probably just going to be us.
Hello, Hurricane Jane. How are you?
I've had a very busy day. I've had a job interview. I helped 2 people. I helped one of the people at my job with her phone for 2 hours. I went out to eat. I worked in another group home. How's your day going?
So you've been a busy gal, and with the situation over there, what solutions are there available?
Well, the thing is the problem with the Mediterranean, and I'm going to bring a map up. We've got Libyans who've had upheaval. They're right across the Mediterranean. So they're right across the water from Italy. And then we have, so that's the Sudan has been in terrible shape for years. So the Sudan is just southeast of Libya. And then Egypt and Mubarak, well, that happened about 7 years ago. So all those countries in northern Africa, including Tunisia, the desire to escape is strong, but the problem is by boat, the only recognizable solution is going to Italy or Greece, and nobody's going to want to go to Turkey because that's a mess. Now, remember that Mike guy who called the show a few weeks ago from upstate New York? He calls us every now and then. He said there's a lot of North Africans on the Greek islands, too. Forces them to conform to their culture versus vice versa. But now it's said in the article that those people who were able to get away from Italy escaped to Spain. And if you look on a map, Barcelona is directly across from Algiers, in Algeria. Algiers, the capital. And that's a pretty straight shot into Europe, too. So I really don't know what's going to happen. It just seems like all over the world there's so much upheaval. And the Bible says in the end times people are going to be traveling to and fro. And there's going to be movement about the earth.
Yeah, across the world you're always been displaced because of war, because of economics. And so the question is to the world is, who can help? How can we help? And what's a constructive way to go about it? Or in other words, does the whole world stop and handle 10,000 people? Does each country maybe take a portion and say we're going to take 1% of the situation? And the other thing too is, what's the responsibility of? Or in other words, am I your responsibility? Are you my responsibility? How do I take care of myself?
Well, like in Syria, in Syria where they're being shot to death day after day after day, year after year after year. I mean, nobody's going to want to stay there, just like people being killed in Guatemala. And now they're all held up on the South Mexican border. So, when you look at a map of Europe, sometimes you have to wonder, why don't the Russians take any refugees? Even Norway, Sweden, and Finland taking people from the Middle East and North Africa, but you never hear about Russia taking anybody. And they have, more landmass than any other country on Earth.
Right. Well, here's take myself. Let's say I call a girl right now and I say, you know what, I want to have a baby. And she goes, okay, are you going to support the baby? And I go, well, I'm kind of in debt and I can't pay off my own bills, but I want to have a baby. I'm born to have a baby. I've got the wiring. It's my programming. This is what I was here to do. Let's do it. And then we have a kid, and then I turn around and I go, Jane, I can't afford this kid. It's your responsibility to help me. Do you feel guilty that I had a child?
I see where you're getting at. Now, I think you're kind of paralleling the situation to the young children that are stranded at the Mexican border, and they're separating.
These are young children born in a country that the people that live in this country. Is Libya been a prosperous, easy, peaceful country for thousands of years? Or do people in that country know?
It was actually in better shape under a dictatorship because people had it's kind of like Bulgaria. When Libya was under Gaddafi, they all had guaranteed jobs, guaranteed income, and guaranteed housing. Now, after he was taken out of the equation, it's chaos, just like it was in Egypt right after Mubarak served 30 years. So
or
I don't
like
have
Iraq.
the answers, but I agree that not all of them should go to Europe because Libya is 5 times the size of Italy. Italy doesn't have any more room for people. Neither does Greece. Now, Spain is so accessible to Morocco that I know a lot of North Africans have snuck in there, and some of them are stuck there. And I saw a documentary about them being fenced in somewhere in Spain, but it's just pretty pathetic. Like, there's so much upheaval in the world, and Africa is the largest continent, but they continue to have so many problems that people can't live there.
Right.
Like maybe the Libyans should go to South Africa instead of Greece or Italy.
Right. And kind of what I'm saying is that so you have a situation where people have had kids that for whatever reason they can't take care of them. They can't, maybe they got killed or maybe there's no economic opportunity. So they're refugees. They're running to it like, we need to eat, we need to survive, we need shelter. So they go, I'm running to your house, right? And so you go, well, I really don't want you in my house, but if you do come to my house, what are you going to do here? In other words, who's going to school them? Who's going to educate them? Are they going to work? What kind of jobs are they going to get? Or do you kind of go from another angle, like in China where they go, listen, you get one kid, you get pregnant again, we will abort the child or we will terminate it. Or do you take control and go to the root of the problem? Like, you're having kids, we're going to your state, we're just going to wipe people out, or we're going to sterilize you so you don't have any more kids because you're coming to us with problems. Now, I'm not taking a mean view. I'm taking a solution rule. Like, in other words, when people bring you a problem, is it your responsibility to solve it? And if you do solve it, it's supposed to be an answer that they want, like it's good for them and no longer good for you. Like, who is going to take? Where are these kids going to work? Who's going to? Do we adopt them? Now, should they have a program where we just try to all adopt children of refugees that are homeless?
I don't know. To tell you the truth, if it wasn't for my bad health, I wouldn't mind adopting like a 10-year-old Syrian.
Yeah.
But the problem is that I have the kind of job where I'm never home, so it's kind of hard. Like, I don't know if the government would subsidize the adoption like they do foster care.
Right.
But I would do it if I got some aid for it. I couldn't do it with the kind of job I had as a single person.
I think government has to organize or be, in other words, there's government of Libya, there's government of, Greece, Turkey, Italy, America. So leadership has to, I think, at that level, or in other words, not one person can take this on unless you're rich or you've got the hookup. You've got your own house and you've got someone a wife or a family system that you can take someone in. Because as it is, we could protest and say someone's got to take them in, but then it comes up to the government to say, can we afford them? And then if we do bring in kids, what are the responsibilities? Like, okay, now they've brought kids that they're going to have to house them. They got to send them to school, feed them, and do you just raise taxes and you kind of make it more of a socialistic program?
Can I read a quote for you from the Bible, from Leviticus?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let me just jump to the page. Hold on a sec. Because somebody posted this the other day and I retweeted it, but it was a Facebook retweet. So let's see here. Hold on. I'm scrolling down and trying to find it. Yeah, here it is. Leviticus 19:33-34. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Like, I guess my answer to you is like, when the vortex was created by the Americans pulling out of Iraq, and then the ISIS moved into eastern Syria and northern Iraq, and they started killing people left and right, and attacking the Kurds and everybody else. Like, there's always going to be somebody to pick up the slack for those people who are dying. Like, sometimes you don't have time to think, you just have to move. Like, it's an everyday thing just trying to get everybody fed. Now, you're looking at it at the perspective from a wealthy country, impoverished person who crosses the border. It's obvious that we can't help everybody, and we don't have the resources to help everybody. It's kind of like the lifeboat ethics, but we have to do something in order to prevent it from getting to that stage. And I'm not saying America has to be the hero, but some country has to be the hero.
Well, that is interesting because you did quote a scripture where it talks about the stranger among you. Now, these are people in another country. These aren't Libyans walking on, the down Pico Boulevard or in Duluth. These are people in another country in the part of the world. Now, we could say the world is all our neighborhood. It's our planet. They are a neighbor. What I'm saying is, is that passage saying go out and look among the world and find need and then put all your resources to save it no matter what the cost is? Even people who aren't agreeing with you politically, who aren't going to help you in any way if you sink or even overthrow your government, we're just going to go out. In other words, I think that passage is saying you got your brother next to you who's from another country, he's hungry, and you basically oppress him and make him a slave and beat him up or exploit them.
I guess the general principle is to help somebody, but we are in the end times, and like Yemen has people slaughtered every day. There was an article where it said people who could afford the food in the marketplace could buy it, but over three-quarters of the Yemenese population is starving. So obviously we have problems worldwide. We have them in the Middle East. We have them in northern Africa. We have them on the Mexican border. And I don't know what the solution is. I'm just trying to draw attention to the fact that if there is someone crossing your border, you better not cut out the soles of their shoes, because that's just not humanitarian.
No, that's not.
Yeah, unless they really think that they're trying to take something that from them that, like the people in the countries that are native, obviously, if they're doing something that mean, it's either an attitude or they're frightened that those people are going to take something that they have for survival.
Right. Well, I think some of that too is it's a spiritual condition, or in other words, I can work 3 jobs till I drop, donate every penny I have, and basically another person's just going to have another 2 or 3 kids, say thank you, and they'll live their life, and then in other words, if their spiritual condition is right, they're going to have a little different attitude. Like I'm not having 5 or 6 kids. I'm not obligating other people to things I can't handle. I have a responsibility. I pay bills, and I think one can focus on physical appeasement. Like taking care of financial considerations. But I think, what about spiritual considerations? There's a reason why the government, why the people are in those situations. There's a non empathy for human life, for just justice over in these countries. So that's why you get these scenarios. In other words, we're not, how should I say, they're creating that environment, and they keep creating it over and over. And that's my concern, is that how do you solve the problem? How do you deal with it effectively? Because again, I can go to the homeless people out here. I can empty out every penny I've got and give it to them, and they're just going to sit there and go, thank you, and come back the next day, where's some more money?
I guess, I was looking at the world map, and I thought of one example while you were talking. Minneapolis, St. Paul has a large Somalian population and also a large West African population. Most of those people have acclimated. They all live there. They've been living there 20 years now. Their parents work in factories, and one of my friend's dads is a cab driver. Some of their parents have more sophisticated jobs, like working in a medical lab, but they made it. They survived, they board children, and now their children are working at my company, and they're like 20 and 21 years old. Most of them are majoring in healthcare management in fields where they help people. And one Somalian who I work with is about 22, and now she had a fundraiser in which she went to Guatemala to help people with healthcare needs. Like, just think of it like that. That whole community from East Africa is now established in Minneapolis, and they're succeeding. Now, that's not the case for people who are new refugees, like Syrians in Germany, that have to start all over and learn the language. And the Germans have provided them little concrete houses with, I saw this article where the Germans are very good at building things. So they built them like a little enclosed area where they have a stove and food and everything else. And they didn't just let the refugees sit by the wayside. And they provided for them and put them in their schools and taught them German. And I mean, it's a long, slow process. But some people die because they just can't acclimate.
Right. Well, I guess here's the question to that. I mean, kind of bordering on that, and that is,
your phone's cutting out, John. Well, John's call dropped. You can call back in. Hi, John. You're back on the air. But right before that happened, your phone was cutting out.
Yeah, I feel that the children are being exploited for political reasons. It's simple. It has basically to the country. They're not legal. They want to become they want to be able to stay in the United States, so they get pregnant. They know once they have a child, the child is born in this country has rights, and that they can therefore theoretically not be taken to the country or separated from the child. That's kind of the concept.
Can you call on your land phone? You're cutting out again. Yeah, his call dropped again. He's going to have to use a different phone. So anyways, I was talking about the Libyans, and I want to read the rest of the article.
Maybe I was intercepted by immigration, by ICE, but what I was going to say is there are some people who use the system just to get children to stay in the country. And kind of it seems like in some of these situations internationally that governments displace, families and children because it's basically they figure someone else will deal with it. Whereas they don't care. They don't mind if people die, innocent children, and that's terrible. So it's kind of like, show a picture of a child. Now everyone has to stop, and the planet has to respond to this. And it's terrible. I mean, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And I guess the question is there a program we can contribute to, or we can look up or support that's dealing with this?
Can I tell you something on a cynical level?
Mm-hmm.
There are groups like Oxfam and human rights groups that are international, whether it's the Red Cross or the Russian version or other NGOs, non-government agencies. But the fact of the matter is the world is in upheaval. We are in the pre-tribulation. There are people losing their lives every day. They're being shot to death in Syria, Yemen, Guatemala. They're running away from their home country because if they stayed, they'd be killed. But if they leave, they might be killed or separated from their family. Like, they have no choice. It's complete chaos. All I'm saying is whether we live in the United States or Spain or France, it's a difficult situation, and the United Nations and other international bodies are going to have to work to try to solve it, just like when the Iraq War ended after 10 years and they didn't have any electricity, or they didn't have cancer was 4 times the amount that it was because of the types of warfare we use there. And their streets were in a mess, and their engineering and their buildings had to be rebuilt. Like, it's just, there's so many problems, we just can only do one thing at a time, basically.
And that's what I was going to say is I think that it's very easy to get lost in the running around with the physical concerns, but there's a spiritual component. No matter what happens, is people need to be ready to face death, life and death. And if you have God, you have a spiritual hope that propels you to deal with these kinds of obstacles. And a lot of the relief and aid that happens is usually to Christian organizations or religious organizations, Catholic charities, and other groups that go out to the world. Whether it's I supported an orphan for like about 7 years or so, but I also realized that even if I supported her, like, where's her soul? What's her spiritual condition? And because that's kind of the big issue. Is like we are in the end times. I mean, this is a time where countries and nations will fight against each other. Regardless, we will all die. Where do we go? What's the spiritual condition? So I'm concerned not just on the spiritual condition of the left.
I do have a comment. When you were talking, you made me think of something. When the Pulse nightclub was attacked and 50 people got shot, I heard something on Christian radio last week that Chick-fil-A, the conservative Christian chicken chain, they provided meals for 2 or 3 days to the families of the victims. Even though people call them bigots, Chick-fil-A, they call them anti-gays and blah, 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 blah. But they were one of the organizations that stepped up and helped the families that were victims of the Pulse nightclub incident. So it's kind of the same things. I was a member of a Southern Baptist church in California for years that you already know about. The Southern Baptists are known to provide emergency services, sometimes even before the American Red Cross, especially like food lines and donations and shelter. So everybody's pitching in. It's just that it just seems sometimes that it's overwhelming, the problems of the world. You can watch the news every day and see it. It's obvious. But I do think we should kind of switch gears to Donald Trump right now, because we've already talked for 36 minutes, and the headliner tonight is the Donald Trump Duluth rally.
Oh, yes.
So basically, he is coming up here. Now, I want to give you a little background. We had a congressman named, an 8th District congressman named Rick Nolan, who's held the seat on and off for 30 years. Well, now he's a Democrat. He's resigning to run for lieutenant governor. He's pretty old. He's in his late 60s. There's another guy named Stauber. He's running for the 8th District seat, and Trump is coming up here to rally for him, but there's some other components. There was a Polymet mining bill that went through the Minnesota legislature a few years ago, and they're building a huge facility in northern Minnesota to mine multiple minerals. Now, the Sierra Club and those environmental groups are against it, but then Donald Trump also has Canadians who, which is it's about an hour and 10 minutes from Duluth. He just dissed the whole Canadian country with the tariffs on steel and trade by jacking up the tariffs. And the Canadians are extremely mad at Donald Trump right now, because they considered America their friend forever, and now they're at major odds. So Donald Trump is going to be contending with some protesters up here, and some Canadians might even come down for it. Who knows? So what do you think of that? What do you think of that scenario?
I take it you didn't vote for Donald Trump.
Heck to the no. I voted for Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Right. And the question is, do you feel are results important, or do you feel it's most important to like the person that's doing the work?
Right now in my own life, Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton being in office has no effect on me. I've had the same job for 5 years. I'm not a displaced worker. Like I'm not a Minnesota mining person, like an iron ore miner that got laid off for 5 years. So technically, on a personal level, it has no effect on me. On a cultural level, my main beef with Donald Trump is his personality type and how he just doesn't handle his presidency the way I would like somebody to. He should get off Twitter completely. I don't like how he name calls and talks back to people, but I will give him credit for something. I think the things that he cares about, he's sincere about, and he has done some good things.
Right, he is getting stuff done, and regardless of whether people like it or not, here's the thing, though, is that he says things that are inflammatory, but then people that don't like him are saying worse things than him. He's not saying F you to anyone. He's not making threats of killing people, celebrities. Yet the other people that don't like him can say such things, and they're kind of given a pass. I mean, is that hypocritical? Or?
Yes, that's true, but the thing is I'm willing to forgive people. Like, I pulled up a tweet from 2014 when he said Dennis Rodman, whatever his name is, Rodman was probably on drugs when he suggested I meet Kim Jong-un. That's the last place I want to go. Like, sometimes the problem with Donald Trump is he's not politically calculating. Like, he doesn't think what he said 3 years ago will come up to haunt him. But they held Bill Clinton to a meticulous scrutiny. They're going to hold every president to a meticulous scrutiny. So whatever they say, they have to carefully choose their words and realize that it's going to have an effect on maybe 5 years down the road. So I think the people that like Donald Trump and accept him at face value can go along smoothly enjoying his presidency, but people who strongly resist him and hate his guts will find anything they can to criticize him about, which one of my friends on Facebook does every single day.
Well, one person that might have had the most effect of creating, if it were Donald Trump, or at least his presidential ventures, was actually Barack Obama. As far as I understand, I think in 2010 they had the annual meeting at the White House. I don't know if it's with the News Corps, and basically Donald showed up with Melania and thought it was going to be a nice, dinner evening. At the time, Donald was really
I know the whole story. Obama ridiculed him.
He roasted them for several minutes. Usually you'll throw out a line against Beyonce's here. You make a joke, or whoever's there. You throw out a line, and then if everyone laughs, but he just kept going at him. And then he even said, "Well, I wonder what the White House would be if Trump were here." And then it had a picture of the Trump insignia over the White House. And Donald basically, from that night on, I think he kind of purposed, like, I'm going to get your job next. Think about this. If I went to someplace and we were just, to an event and we had some odds with someone, and then they just roasted us, and the next thing we do is we run to, we make it our goal to own that company, as it were. And we succeed, and basically he's resetting the White House the way he wants it, as far as what things are done. There was it was interesting. You remember with Comey, they were trying to protect Hillary because they had that whole issue with her server, and basically when they had the chance to go after Donald Trump before the election, they decided to just go, balls to the wall. So they went for him. Well, in September, they found out about Weiner's laptop popped up. Like, basically they found out that they had this laptop with all this information in September. They decided to sit on it for a month because they were busy chasing Trump. And just before the election, November, a couple weeks before, they realized, well, if we don't talk about Hillary stuff, it's going to be an issue after the election. Like they're going to say it was a phony election. So to protect Hillary, he figured out that she had such a large lead that there's no way she could lose the election. So she basically told me they announced that they were going to reinvestigate her, which in turn kind of helped flip the election. So it seems that the two people that have helped Donald Trump the most was Barack Obama and basically James Comey. I mean, as far as flipping the election to where he had a chance to win or motivate him to win.
I don't really want to digress that far back, and I'll tell you why. And because I do have some pertinent things to tell you about today, not yesterday. The thing is, John, is what Comey couldn't do right no matter what, because I believe in my mind that Comey was concerned about Hillary's emails, and he just wanted to make sure everything was on the up and up, including the 30,000 missing emails. So maybe he did do the wrong thing by reopening the investigation less than 8 weeks before the final election. But the other thing is Donald Trump is his own worst enemy. Like, even in a press conference less than a week ago, he'll stand there and say, the New York Times, they print phony stories. He waters down things all the time. He doesn't need somebody like Comey to justify or unjustify himself. He's going to put his foot in his mouth no matter what. And the people who already reject him are going to say, what a complete asshole. And the people who like him are just going to, let it float right by and degrade the New York Times as a literary institution.
Well, think about this. So what are they still, as of now? They're investigating. What did they have? They had the Inspector General do a report. And you think about this. Did Donald Trump destroy cell phones? Did he smash them? Did Donald Trump use bleach bit on his computers? Did they?
What are you trying to say?
Well, I'm trying to be very real about it. Is that there's a double standard. They're not treating him actually very nicely, and he's going after them because.
Can I tell you what happened? John, I had an employee who's knowledgeable about politics, and this is her theory. She thinks that Donald Trump did not release his federal taxes because he has so many ties to Russia financially with holding and investments that he felt like it was too big of a risk to release it. Now, I have no idea if that's true, but this is someone who researches things daily. But let me read something to you. It's less than 2 paragraphs. I'm just going to tell you, like Steph, my friend Steph on Facebook, she must post 4 times a day about Donald Trump. She's obsessed with him. She wrote 13 hours ago, CBS News, Michelle Brain, director of migrant workers at the Women's Refugee Commission, met with a 16-year-old girl who had been taking care of a young girl for 3 days. The teen and others in their cage thought the girl was 2 years old. She had to teach other kids in the cell to change their own diapers. Brain said that B-R-A-N-E is the person's name. Brains, the woman refugee commissioner, said that after an attorney started to ask questions, agents found the girl's aunt and reunited the two. It turned out the girl was actually 4 years old. Part of the problem was that she didn't speak Spanish, but Quiche, a language indigenous to Guatemala. She was so traumatized by the events around her, she stopped talking. Well, then, just let me read one more post. Trump is basically saying this: I'll release the captured children if you give me $30 billion to build a border wall that I once promised you Mexico would pay for it. Yes, he's using these children as political hostages and then blaming the Democrats for it. Sick. So every day she writes she writes truthful, but also kind of like things that are so extreme that you're not really sure where she's coming from. Like, it's kind of like major hype. Now, if you compile that with maybe like 10 million Americans who are writing the same thing on their wall, then people are just going to get jaded by the other party and start thinking badly. Like, it's just going to be more and more vitriol.
Well, it's something that the country will have to figure out how we're going to work together, because we do, basically has a style of getting things done, of taking charge in the situation. And our example with Canada, with these other countries, or like with China, I think it's about over $500 billion that we bring in from them. We ship out 140 billion or so. So I was kind of figuring the math. It's like basically each American, like we buy a couple $1,000s worth of goods from China. I think about 3,000 a year. Whereas the Chinese, there's over a billion, so they buy about maybe a couple $100 a year from us. Now, of course, their wages are, and that's something I have to do a little more research. But the point is, between Europe and between Russia, we're not even up on our trade. So the question is, how do we correct that? Do we just keep giving away stuff, or do we actually stand up for ourselves and fight for what's ours?
I don't know, because it depends on your concept of we, them, us. Like Ernest, who used to be on our part of our radio show, I'll just give you two quotes. Sylvia, my friend from LA, she was an immigrant, and now she has a great job at UCLA. She has an upscale job. She said, we didn't move the border moved us. In other words, Mexicans founded California, or actually Spanish speaking. The Mexicans and the Spain founded Californians way back in the 1500s. Then when they lost the Civil War, obviously, then the territory was technically taken from them. But and then my friend Ernest, who used to be my friend, I should say, he said that there should be no borders, no respect to the borders. We're all people of the earth. That we're all universal citizens. There should not be borders restricting people. In other words, he probably doesn't believe in private property either. Like, he probably thinks the earth belongs to everyone, type of philosophy.
Has anyone ever traveled outside of the United States? You have to have a visa. You can't go into China. You can't walk into Russia. You go up to Alaska, see if you can cross the border. You can't get on a boat and go up to Korea and get off the boat and say, I want to come here. If I get a woman pregnant, I belong to live here, and I get benefits to health care and education and food. Does that work anywhere in the world? What world are we talking about here?
Actually, yes, it does. In Sweden, Norway, and Finland, you can get social services.
So why don't we send the Libyan
And in Germany, a German citizen is guaranteed a college education as long as they pass a skills test.
Okay, so
and they're qualified in that area.
So if we send the Libyan refugees to those two countries, will that take care of the problem?
Well, Mike from New York, who was on the show a few weeks ago, he said that African immigrants in Canada are starting to get top priority over the natives. In other words, let's say you're a Somalian refugee in Nova Scotia, you're getting immediate entrance into college, and then the native Canadians sometimes have to wait longer.
Did you know that America, I think we're the only country that has a document, the Constitution, that actually guarantees free speech? I mean, free speech isn't guaranteed in China or Russia or the Middle East. It's not even in Great Britain, actually, surprisingly. You can be censored or monitored over there.
What do we have that nobody else has? I missed
a constitution that guarantees freedom of speech, freedom to bear arms, like we're guaranteed these rights as individuals. It's not guaranteed in other parts of the world, and yet we're the ones.
In England, you have freedom of speech, but they have restrictive gun laws. The freedom of speech and all those civil rights came from philosophers from France and England like Rousseau, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke. They're the ones who created those. They didn't create them, but they defined it in civil terms.
Right, but over the years, as their legal systems have developed, they have begun to create restrictions on what you can say in those countries and what you can do. You can't carry a gun in England, can you?
I know that, like, in places like Japan, it has to be locked up in your house, and, like, the government has an exact map to where it is. In England, right. I don't know what... We discussed this on another show when Ariana Grande, there was an explosion at that stadium in England, and I don't have the facts, and I only have the immigration facts in front of me tonight. I'm sorry to tell you.
Oh, no, that's all right. It's good to discuss stuff and figure stuff out. Because if you don't know what your rights are, your freedoms, they can be taken away, you know, and we have to appreciate what we have. I mean, I'm all for freedom, you know, and for rights, and but are we also, the issue is, are we talking about illegal immigration, or is it something that we have laws about and then we're not enforcing?
Well, are you going to be like Jeff Sessions, care more about the laws than mothers being separated from their kids?
Well, you know, that's a very interesting point.
He was quoting a different part of the Bible, and his quote technically endorsed slavery.
Well, actually, I don't think kids or families should be separated. But when they wrote up those laws, they made it in an angle where you have to choose: are you choosing asylum, or are you a citizen? Are you entering legally or illegally? So that's always the question: is are children being used as a pawn? Or in other words, let's say I break and enter into your house, and you go, well, that's against the law. You can't do that. I go, well, I have a child with me, and he needs food. Oh, well, now I give you a pass because the child should never go without food, and we have to feed the child. It's my responsibility. Is it our responsibility if someone's here illegally, if someone chooses to have a child? Is that my responsibility? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't help.
I don't know, but somebody's going to feed them, whether it's your responsibility or not.
Right, which is the adult who is illegal. In other words, by the way, I'm all for it. So if someone can make it in illegally and they speak in, I'm just saying, if I drive 100 on the freeway, caught, I also know they'll probably take away my car and put me behind jail, because if you go over 90 and you get caught, it's like reckless driving. It's a major level.
I think what you're trying to say that some people's lives infringe on your own. It's the lifeboat ethics theory where, like, let's say the whole state of Californians is thousands and thousands of acres. They have 35 million people living there, and there's no room for more. So the basic premise is that you cannot take any more people. That's what you're trying to say to the radio audience tonight.
Actually, what I'm saying is that when you know the rules, if you create a rule and someone knows the rule and you break the rule, then you ask for an exception because you have a child. Does that absolve you for it? Or in other words, people know.
Yeah, if you are fleeing from a country, if you are a war refugee, or you're going to be killed by a gang in Guatemala, you have the right to either go into Mexico or the U.S., and now Mexico is accommodating those refugees because America won't. If I were a Guatemalan, I'd probably just die in my own country than try to make a risk to come to there. Because we're not in a friendly stage right now. It's not like it was in the mid-'80s. the family that came from Honduras and became the church secretary, and now her daughter's a principal of a Green Dot school in LA and was raised here and became successful. It's not like that anymore. There's hostility towards poor people. They're hated.
They're hated, or
maybe you're one of those people that don't want them here.
No, what I'm saying is, if there's a law, well, first of all, I'm not sneaking to another country. I'm not sneaking to other states and asking people to take care of me. I'm saying if I break the law and I get away with it, I say more power to me. But what I'm saying is if I break the law knowingly and I get caught, is everyone supposed to feel sorry for me? Am I supposed to cry about it, or do I just say,
no,
there is a law? I mean, why do we make the law? Let me ask this. Why is there a law?
But there are different conditions. Like if you steal a travel clock from Walmart and you get arrested, no, I'm not going to feel sorry for you. But if your family's being, let's say you lost 7 out of 10 family members in Guatemala, and you decided to risk it to come to the U.S., yes, even if you break the law, I'm going to feel sorry for you.
Well, and what I'm saying is as a human being, I applaud the person. If they can sneak in and make it, I say, hey, you made it. But what I'm saying is if that same person gets caught by border police or later on by immigration and they get deported, I also say, you got caught. I mean, I do things, in life that are illegal. I go over the speed limit. And the point is, when I get caught, I don't say the system's rigged and I just say I broke the law. I was trying to get ahead for myself.
But it's still devastating if a family's their last chance is the U.S. and they come here and get sent back. They don't look at it as like a win-loss on a scoreboard. They look at it as life or death.
Well, the country that they were born in, they feel that's death.
I want to change. I want to do our conclusions now because I've been at work 3 hours, and I feel like now we're starting to go in circles.
Oh no, I'm just asking the question. You're saying if they go back to the country you're born. I'm born in a country. I decide to leave because I think I don't like America. I'm going to China because they're the future, and they lock me out. I sneak in to boat at night,
John,
get past everything, and I get caught. Wait a second. You go, don't send me back to America. Is China a bad country for sending me back?
Well, don't have a border patrol trick the family saying, I'm going to give your kid a bath, and then the kid disappears forever.
But they know.
And then they give the immigrant a false piece of paper with a false phone number on, saying this is where you can find your kid, and it's the wrong number.
Right. So they made a law regarding this, right? Lawmakers made laws regarding this situation to create the situation. They could have wrote a law saying, if we catch a kid that's born in the United States, we're not going to separate them with the family, or we'll give them a 1-year period where they can reapply, and there's a program we will create to do this or that. Somewhere in the system, they wrote a law like if you get caught, you get sent back. The kid has to stay, so we detain him or whatever, or separate him. So someone came up with that law. What I'm saying is they need to change that law. Is what I'm saying. I want a cure. I want a solution. Like we should go to our lawmakers and say, change this law, make it fair.
It doesn't change the fact that I'm tired of discussing it. So we have 2 choices here. We can go to commercial for 3 minutes. John, just give me a second, okay? I've been pushing it for 6 hours. Okay. We can go to commercial for 3 minutes so I can take a breather and re-describe the show, or we can do our conclusions now and end the show in 5 minutes. Which one would you want to do?
I'll go with the flow. You can abort the conversation.
Okay, let's take a 3 minute. Let's take a 3 minute commercial. I'm going to play one of your songs, and I'll see you in 3 minutes. Okay?
Okay.
Here we go.
bright. The dreams that lived inside you became your sacrifice. When I think these days about you, the example that you led makes me want to leave this world behind and follow God instead. There's a choir in heaven waiting just for you. Yeah. And why would you be down here when there's so much there for you? Give it to me. The torch you gave to me, it will go on. It's burning brighter, shining on and on. And we will go on, we will be strong, and we will carry on. We will go on, our hearts will be one, and we will carry on. We will go on, we will be strong, and we will carry on. We will go on, our hearts will be one, and we will carry on. Come and take my hand, baby, no more, baby, no more. God forever sure. Come and take my hand, tell me what you see. Never will we cry, forever happily. Come and take my hand, baby, no more. Never will God forever sure. Come and take my hand, we will fly away. Always with the Lord, forever we will stay.
We're back on the air, John. So I guess I only have a couple things left to say, and then I'm going to say something, and then you can go. And if you want to keep talking, I'll just let you close the show out. Basically, there's nothing really in the news lately that's gotten my attention. It's just the ongoing problems that we see every day with the migration crisis of people and people being ticked off at Trump for one reason or another. But he made some breakthroughs with the North Korean initiative and moving the offices to Jerusalem. But really, we're just trying to maintain here and focus on growth and stability. That's about all I have to say for the rest of the night.
Well, I guess tomorrow, or it's Wednesday, right? Actually.
Yeah, there's a rally.
So are you going to be able to get your Let's Make America Great Again cap in time for the rally?
No, but I do have an official ticket to go in now.
Oh, really? Well, you'll shake it up.
I'm wearing my Obama hat.
Well, you do be careful. I hope that you're.
I'll probably get stoned by rednecks.
or Red Bulls.
Up here, they're not really rednecks. They're more like hunters and fishermen and people like that with about a 50-degree IQ.
There might be some NRA people
I would
there.
call them. I guess I would call them single-minded people who lost their place in white America.
Well, we'll see what happens. I think the country is moving forward economically. It's pretty hard to argue.
Well, we have the lowest unemployment in 45 years.
I talked to a gal 2 days ago who said it's all Obama's doing. Like, this is just the Obama effect. Like, 8 years kind of flatlining, and suddenly this big spike in the last 2 years is all Obama.
I really don't, you know what, I can't professionally comment. It just seems that things are picking up and people have more faith, but I noticed that the stock market dips and flows every time there's a major foreign policy change. Like when Kim Jong-un was going to cancel that meeting, and there was a dip in the stock market, and it seems like the stock market's pretty flaky, but I can't speak for. It seems like anyone can pretty much find a job who wants a job, at least in Duluth.
Well, it'll be an interesting couple of years. Well, we're a couple of years into Trump, and the world hasn't ended yet. The economy's better. People are more upset on both sides than ever. So we'll see what happens the next couple of years. They still haven't gotten.
To tell you the truth, I think the vitriol is kind of fading a little. Like people are just kind of sick of it.
Well, you know, it's kind of like the Roadrunner Coyote. Every day, like Roadrunner this time, and he goes beep beep.
Another cartoon.
It's kind of like CNN every day. It's like we'll blow him up this time. We got this Acme device, and he's sure to go down. You know, Stormy will take him down, or the Russians will take him down. I don't know. It seems like he's tougher on Russia. If he's really in collusion with them, why is he so tough on them? You know, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
Well, let's just hope and pray that something good happens, and maybe he is the person in Revelation. Ha ha. Who is that guy in Revelation? What's the guy in Revelation that everybody turns to and worships? I can't think of his name tonight.
The beast. There's the false prophet that brings life to the image of the beast, and there's the beast. He actually is slain, but then he resurrects, and there's a image of the beast that the false prophet brings to life. And we could be the beast, but it is interesting because I will say this: that there's a lot of, if Trump quote unquote fails, let's say next election he doesn't win, there's going to be such a swing, I think, to the left of just as far as rules and what you can say and not say. In other words, anyone who's conservative is basically a Nazi. They're racist. They're misogynist. They're evil. And if you don't subscribe to any other view, you're just a bad person. And it just seems like we're losing the right to just be individuals. You know, like you can voice your opinion and be like either side.
I'll be honest with you, John. I don't live my day every day with identity politics. Like John's always got his undies in a bunch, and they always have like 4 to 5 events a month that they run through the NAACP, but I don't live my politics on my sleeve every day. I just try to function in the world, pay my bills, and get to work on time. But I don't really have an agenda. I was thinking back tonight, like how pissed off I was about the Gore v. Bush election and how I faxed the Tallahassee Democrat newspaper from my job in Glendale. And like I was all up in arms. This is before the internet really got underway, but basically, like, I'm not wrapped up with things anymore. Like, I'm not in control of the universe. There's some things that I'll voice my opinion on, but I'm not, like, fervent.
Yeah, because, I mean, there are some people that are annoying, but, you know, when you look at the country, are we... I don't know, is this Nazi Germany? Are we really gassing Jews? Are we really killing people in death camps? You know, I think that
no, but we are separating children from their families, and there's a possibility that those people will never be reconnected. So either deport the whole family or keep them together. You can't that's a very evil thing to do.
Well, they are actually, it's becoming a political leverage, if you could say, where they basically, between the two parties, they're trying to negotiate. And I think you've seen in the press, Trump says, let's change the rule right now, let's meet. And so, but there's a leverage. Basically both sides are going to attach it to something like, okay, we will not separate the families if you give up this or if you give us that. So I think that's the bigger issue. Neither side is specifically committed to the children. They're committed to an agenda and attaching the children like hostages, is if you see my point. They could really, Democrats could show up tomorrow and say, we're going to change the rule. We're going to don't separate the families. Here's our bill. Republicans, you like it, let's go. But Republicans are going to say, well, we want the wall. And then Democrats can say, we don't want the wall, or we don't want this or that policy, or we'll attach it to, Rainbow Coalition or to Me Too or whatever. And they'll throw something attached, and then they'll go, okay, well, now we have to suck up to this agenda. So I think that's the problem, what you're seeing. It's leveraging. The children really are just hostages. No one cares about the children, really. Because if they really cared, they would meet tomorrow and just fix it. But both sides have an agenda. So that's
the immigration system's been broken for years. Unfortunately, the human rights crises of Central America and Southern Mexico, the only thing that's good that's come out of the whole situation is that Mexico has stepped up and the churches in Southern Mexico and other places have tried to help these people, because they're starting to get that America isn't the golden chalice anymore. America is not the solution. They might be stranded in no man's land for years. So they're just going to have to deal with the situation.
Wow. Well, I know I have some friends. Now, one of them kind of updating on it. One of them, the son he's legal. He's 19 or 20. He's got a girlfriend. They're both on government assistance, food stamps, and welfare and all that stuff. And they have a kid. Kid's about 1 now. He's still trying to get a job. And then the other daughter was missing at a boyfriend. He was from, I think, not Korea. Well, actually, no, he was born.
Is this a church member?
No, not really, because he was an outsider, but basically
You're cutting out again, John.
Oh. He was born on an American base, so he was technically a citizen, but they didn't fill out his paperwork. So when he came back to the United States, he was basically illegal. But he dated this gal who's Hispanic. She's a citizen. And they were doing drugs. And she disappeared. They both ran off together. And we've been praying for them. And basically she showed up this week. Turns out he's dead. He's doing too much drugs. And he had a problem with asthma. And so that complicated his condition, and he's only like 25, and he went into a coma, and since he didn't have family or the correct medical insurance, they unplugged him after a month. He was brain dead. And but these are the sagas of life that go on. These are tough decisions in life, like who pays for what, how do we take care of them, and and the girl came back. She doesn't have a job. She doesn't believe in working or in money. It's materialistic. And how do you fix thinking? How do you fix people's moral responsibility, to life? It's a deep issue.
Well, that sounds like, in this case, it sounds like they were trying to use drugs. The guy was using drugs as an escape. He wasn't being responsible or paying attention to his health, and he really didn't value his life. And now he's dead because of it.
Right, and in the end, you're talking basically 5 people, if you think about it, 2 couples and a kid. None of them are working, all of them on public assistance, which means the people that are working, to cover that, it takes, 40 or 50 people's wages to cover that, the full weight of someone. So these are these aren't illegal people. I mean, as far as 4 of them, there aren't. It's just the one boyfriend. So it's easy to say, hey, let's fix this, but
you know what, John? it's less than 20% of the people you know. Not everybody you know is on public assistance. And if they are, you're in the wrong neighborhood.
But here's the
thing.
thing.
You know, I'm at work and I'm feeling very sick. So we have to do our conclusions now.
Understand, to fully support someone, that 10%, you need the other 90% working to support that. But what I'm going to say is that these are young people in the prime of their life. They're not working. And older people like you and me are working our butts off to support it. So we have to consider that when when it comes time to writing the check. Is the only thing I'm saying.
It's sad, and I'm sorry that they have that type of mental framework. But with that, we have been talking 90 minutes. Unfortunately, I have a bad stomachache, and I have to end the show.
Okay.
I'm just very fatigued. My medicine's in the car, and I haven't taken it. Yeah. So you can do your 60-second conclusion now if you want.
Well, in conclusion, let's all just try to help the less fortunate and pray for governments. Pray that or write your legislators that they will figure out how to help these other unfortunate people. If you know people that are unfortunate, help them. Support through yourself or your church. And, be positive about it, because if you're not floating, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of someone else. And don't let it drag you under. Just have some faith, and things will work out. And everyone's just got to figure things out, and we'll see what the day brings. Be happy to be alive. And that's all I can do, because that's all I can do.
Let's try to create a society that's sustainable. America's pretty good at producing food and making sure people have accessibility to food, even the homeless, through soup kitchens. So let's just start with ourselves and our own community and see where that takes us. But with that, I'm going to end the show due to fatigue and illness. And thanks for listening and being part of the show, John. I'll talk to you in a few days. Okay?
All right.
Happy birthday, Don Gallimore. And Ben, you're missing in action again. Good night, y'all. Bye.